What's up, everybody? It's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show your 24-hour a day. Back from the break. Remember, you all can follow and subscribe to the KBR Sports podcast. We're going on Rabble TV, Spreaker, YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud. Also, don't forget that you can follow the KBR Sports Twitter page at KBR_sports with the live links and show topics to tweet prior to every single show. Don't forget, you can also call in at 571-991-0566 to give your thoughts and opinions on any KBR Sports show topic that we may be discussing. All right, y'all. So, time to touch on a team that has not looked like itself since its last trip to the Super Bowl, and that team is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks, since losing the Super Bowl to the New England Patriots, have not looked like the same Legion of Boom, let alone Seattle Seahawks team that seemed to instill fear in everybody in the NFC and those in the AFC that did not want to go up against them in the Super Bowl. This Seattle Seahawks team has looked entirely different. They don't seem to have the same amount of continuity and cohesion that made that team so great that got to the Super Bowl. Like, now when you look at the Seattle Seahawks team, essentially a lot of people are counting them out at this point now, because you look at the Legion of Boom. Richard Sherman's out for the season. Cam Chancellor is likely out for the season with a neck injury. Earl Thomas is dealing with some with some injuries of his own that he just returned back from an injury. Then you just have a different situations where now you see the Seahawks can't run the ball, when in their Super Bowl years they were the number 1 or number 2 rushing offense in the league. Then you look at it with their offensive line. They have arguably the worst offensive line in football. Truly, one of the worst offensive lines in football. Nothing done about it. They made a trade for Dwayne Brown from the Houston Texans, but their offensive line still does struggle from a lot, because it's not that one guy won't make a whole offense. Like, you have to have pieces here and there that can suffice to make your offensive line at least workable. Russell Wilson is literally running for his life on every single play. Literally every single one. I'm not exaggerating. He's almost every single play. If you notice, Russell Wilson has to roll out or run from somebody almost on every single play. This is really no joke. So when you look at it from that vantage point, you see a team on the rise like the Los Angeles Rams in their own division, which the Rams lead the division right now 7-3. You can only wonder. I mean, is that time coming up for Seattle? I mean, Seattle's still in the wild card position, so it's not like they're counted out yet. But you got to sit back and wonder, because when you look at the Legion of Boom, Richard Sherman will turn 30. Will turn 30 this year, or sorry, next year. Earl Thomas is going to be adding another year of age. Cam Chancellor. So all these guys are getting older and older, and it's like you've lost some of your ancillary pieces that made you great. You lost beast mode, Marshawn Lynch, who was the identity of your run game. So when you lose a player like that, your team doesn't function the same. They don't gel the same. A lot of things change, and a lot of new looks and new personnel are brought in to try and make things work. But in a lot of these instances, that stuff it takes time to make work. And unless you're really solid from all fronts, it's going to be a struggle for you to really make the game come together all around. So in the case of the offensive line and whatnot, when the Seattle Seahawks decided to make the trade to get rid of Max Unger and Russell Okung and stuff like that, when they decided to make those moves, and they traded away those guys to go get particularly Max Unger to go get a Jimmy Graham, you saw that the identity of this team changed a bit, because they try to make it a more passing finesse team, when their whole identity throughout the years has been run, ground and pound, and has been all about their ferociousness, how they fit. They were the ultimate physical team. When you played the Seattle Seahawks, you were going to need a bye week afterwards, because you're going to be feeling it and you're going to feel the pain, because they always wanted to make sure that their opposition never left the game feeling the same, or left the game knowing that they wanted to play them again the next week or anytime soon. But now this is an entirely different look team. Like, this team is primarily rested on the shoulders of Russell Wilson. So you see a lot of pressure put on Russell Wilson's back, and a lot of pressure is put on him to make a lot of the big plays, to carry the offense, to make the offense have to be able to even function correctly. Like, Russell Wilson, in a lot of instances, is the team's leading rusher, and that's to have your quarterback have to be your leading rusher. That's a sign. That's all signs that no-go. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants their quarterback to be their leading rusher. That's how your quarterback ges hurt. A la Cam Newton. Cam Newton got a concussion last season because he was the leading rusher for the Panthers, and Cam Newton just ended up taking so many hits. He hurt his shoulder last season, and then until recent memory, he didn't start looking like himself. So the Seahawks, and even last season, Russell Wilson, it's not like Russell Wilson went with that unscathed. He had an ankle injury last year that sidelined him for quite a bit of time. So when you look at this team, man, you can only sit back and wonder, like, is this about that time? I mean, if we're asking from my vantage point, I mean, the Rams are on the come up. The Rams look very impressive, and the Rams were one catch away from beating the Seattle Seahawks at home. And the Seahawks do always seem to have the older brother mentality over the Rams. Like, they're always that big brother that the Rams sometimes beat up on, but the Seahawks at the end of the day end up having the last laugh and taking the cake. But the Rams seem to be a team that's looking to definitely make its claim and take its place in the NFC. And you definitely have to admire it, but at the same time, while admiring it, acknowledge the fact that they are viable competition for the NFC West crown against the Seattle Seahawks. And that the Rams right now are probably the most complete team in the division in terms of on defense and offense. Because Seattle's offensive line can't block for a soul. I mean, honestly. Like, they literally can't block for a soul. And a soul doesn't need blocking. A soul is transparent. So this shows how bad they are in terms of as an offensive line, how they operate. So I think that at this point, man, I understand why the Seattle Seahawks were trying to move Richard Sherman in the offseason, because it seems like it was getting to that point now that they were trying to break up the Legion of Boom a season earlier than they would need to, because they knew that injuries were going to start coming with age. So they were trying to break up the unit a season before they actually needed to. Like, you don't want your guys to hit the cliff before you actually do it. You want to pre-anticipate the cliff and then change things up so that the cliff never hits you and it hits somebody else. But that player is still of value at that star level and that star name that you will get a worthy return back. So we'll definitely have to see how the Seahawks play it out for the future. In terms of will this team ever make it to another Super Bowl, man, I don't. Like, you have a lot of teams, like the Phillies on the rise now. Obviously, you see them coming up the rise. New Orleans has come back for a resurgence. The Rams, are, like I listed, are on a rise. The Cowboys, when they're healthy, can probably make some noise in the NFC. The Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers, and it's just like, unless you see this, primarily for me, unless Seattle can get their offensive line together, I just don't see how they can make another Super Bowl run, especially with top tier defenses like the Vikings and just other tough teams in the NFC to contend with. I just don't see it. I don't see how it can happen. All right, y'all. I'm gonna head to my next break, but when I come back from the break, we're gonna have the biggest topic of the day, NFL Correction Monday, where I'm gonna tally up all me and Nigel and I. Well, I guess it would be me and Nigel's predictions, just to use the proper noun in terms of that instance. But where I'll tally up me and Nigel's predictions and our over/under scores and see who had the most correct points and who was the guy that gets the crown for Mr. Always Right. All right, stay tuned to find out who it is, y'all. It's KBR Sports, the best sports talk show, your 24-hour day. Make sure you all refresh the page after the live link disappears. Refresh it after about 50 to 60 seconds. The live link will be back up for you all to tune into. And don't forget, the show streams live every Monday and Wednesday from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. So don't you ever miss it. And make sure on Mondays, you always know there's either NFL Correction Monday or NFL Reaction Monday. All right, y'all, stay tuned. It's KBR Sports.